Okay, class. Now we're going to have part two of the lecture on depth psychology and Jung's ideas about the anima anonymous and how they're being transformed in contemporary times. Let me share my screen here. Let's dive right into it then. Now, this is a little clinical example of what was talked about in my previous lecture on this subject of depth psychology and the gender fluidity that we have in our contemporary lifestyle and how important that is for us to deal with that. Clinical confrontations, detransition, and the evasion of distress. The clinical management, and this is getting into some diagnostic terms here. The clinical management of gender dysphoria has become a site of intense friction, particularly regarding gender affirmative model versus the exploratory model. And just for full disclosure, I am really in a stance towards a gender affirmative model. But we need to look at, as a professor, it's my duty to explain both views and to discuss my ideas and have you be willing. You can challenge these and leave a comment if you're not in the class. After class, you're going to have a whole time to ask me questions. But if you're online and you're seeing this, I want you to put me a comment and I will read it and write back to you. Lisa Marciano's 2021 case study of Maya, a young woman who detransitioned, sparked significant debate by suggesting that the affirmative approach treats gender identity as an empirical fact rather than a symbolic expression of internal experience. So, Lisa Marciano is on This Jungian Life. She's a really famous Jungian analyst, and with her two colleagues, really know a lot. So I would like to have a dialogue sometime with her and discuss this. But Marciano argues that when the psyche's metaphors are made literal through medical transition, the physical body becomes a vehicle for metaphoric expression rather than a subject of symbolic exploration. In Maya's case, Marciano identified unaddressed psychological complexities such as ADHD, disordered eating, and parental neglect that were overshadowed by the quest for gender change. And that's exactly correct. I agree with that 100%, that we have to rule out the cause, that it's not caused by other things. I had a young man who was in the first episode psychosis program that I ran for 25 years, but he was a male. But all through his life, his mom from birth would say, he had a terrible birth. His mom was born using and he was using, but the mother told him, I wish you were a girl. I wish you were dead. I wish you were a girl. And he was suicidal and demanded that he have a sex change to being a girl when he was 18. And I knew that it was not the right thing to do because he was doing it to get love, but that's not the reason to do it. And he had a lot of other disorders like psychosis or whatever. And at that particular time, you had to get a psychologist to write a letter for you to start the transition and get the hormones. And I've written letters for other people, but in this particular case, I said no. And so I agree with Marciano on this wholeheartedly. Now, after thinking about, and when dealing with a real case, you got to deal with the real person. The critique highlights that the affirmative model may overlook underlying complex psychological dynamics like trauma or narcissistic parental dynamics. Trapped in the Mirror is a great book about being a child of a narcissist. Clinical perspective, the philosophy, and the key risk. Affirmative care. Prioritize felt identity as a fact. Key risk. Concretization of metaphor, miscomorbidities. That's the key there. Well, we want to really make sure that it's really something that's not just felt in a negative sense, and we want to explore it with people. Exploratory therapy views gender disorder as a symbolic expression of distress. So I'm not getting loved by my mother, so I want to become a girl. So that's a symbolic expression. That's one of the easy. It's sometimes hard for me to see the symbols. It takes me a while. But when I got that, I really got that. Seen as a trauma phobic or conversion adjacent. So, and there is a whole medical establishment. There's a whole there is money behind this. There's capitalism is always something we want to look at. All the isms can get involved in this. Cautious monitoring without social medical change. Watchful waiting as a model. I agree with that. Concerns over prolonging distress or preventing regret. Yes, especially when it comes time to changes in the body. And we've had a whole deal in sports psychology where the person transitioned in college after going through the whole time of and getting all the hormones of a man and won the championship, barely beating a biological female. So the whole idea of gender in sports is a whole other. I need to do a Jungian evaluation of that. Cautious monitoring is watchful waiting. Taking time to think about it is always a good thing. I had a doctor tell me about a heart issue, and we decided to wait on it, and I'm doing really good right now. Iatrogenic model. Iatrogenic is when it's caused by the doctor. Focuses on harms of early medical intervention. Highlights social contagion and spin in publications. Oh, social contagion. Yes, I've seen anorexia and a lot of gender things run through a high school because of social contagion, meaning that one person's teaching another person how to throw up and lose weight, and that person it can run rampant. Or cutting, one person starts cutting to change their, and it really does change your mood. And so the whole high school, or at least a whole section of it, can start cutting. Robert Withers criticizes transgender medicalization, arguing that it can be an attempt to avoid experiencing psychological distress. And we know from what Jung said that these things are trying to balance us. So maybe we need to have more therapy and mental health treatment before we go to medication. This happens on three levels. The trans person may try to avoid feelings linked to attachment trauma. A big thing to analyze and to think about is the person's attachment. Like the case I told you about, where I wanted a girl. I hate you. I wish you were. But that was really young and had bad attachment. And the mother was also on drugs. One out of every three children born at Nativity Medical Center at the time I was there were born with drugs on board. So we had a whole team that dealt with parent-child interactive therapy to help attachment early on, 0 to 5. And that's a really difficult thing for the therapist. I had a lot of interns go through that, and some would become lifers, but 50% would say, I don't want to do that. It's too hard. And I will tell you, it's easier to see the pain of an 18-year-old in this area. It's not easy, but it's easier than seeing a baby go through it. The therapist might avoid dealing with fear and hatred that come up in countertransference. And the society may refuse to acknowledge the reality of trauma by claiming that trans identification is purely biological. Withers warns that the evidence supporting the biomedical approach is weak, risking young people receiving treatments that could potentially harm them. And this is the patriarchal complex here. Patriarchal, sociological, biological complex. Biology is destiny, gender gene. It's all there are male as alpha, heteropatriarchal complex. Oh, here we go. The heteropatriarchal complex and the socio-political unconscious. Gustavo Pessoa introduces the concept of the heteropatriarchal complex to evaluate the importance of Jungian ideas. And we discussed that a little bit before in the previous one. Pessoa and there will be an explainer that talks about that too, or you might have already seen that before this. Pessoa contends that viewing heterosexuality as purely archetypal phenomena creates the illusion of essentialism and conflicts with modern social theory. Instead, framing it as a complex developed in response to sexuality, the broader archetype enables more nuanced clinical listening that incorporates social political factors into complex, into incorporates social political factors into conflicts. Yes, we need to always look at that. And let's look at that picture. There again is the patriarchal social political complex there. Ooh, it gives you a little picture of it. And you see the people that are enchained down below with the God above. Yes, this theory by Pessoa, as children of capitalism, we find ourselves caught in the heteropatriarchal web. a tangled dance between fleeting sexual impulses and an economic system that refuses to embrace the kaleidoscope of human possibilities outside its rigid frame. This complex evaluates the white heterosexual male as a clear-cut icon of normalcy, casting all else into shadow. Yet, through confronting and untangling these threads, therapists can craft new bridges of understanding, weaving a vibrant lexicon that celebrates lives living beyond the narrow lanes of heteronormativity. So, the complex level, we have three levels of the complex here that we're talking about right now: the personal complex in your personal childhood and your life, the cultural complex, and the heteropatriarchal complex, which has to do a lot with capitalism in the social level and making sure our wealth is passed on to the next generation and us developing these corporations and that kind of thing. So, the personal, independent energy center in the individual psyche, impact on gender, shapes the person's reactions to gender expectations of the family and the culture and the parents. I wish I had a girl. I wish you would, all that. Collective historical memory and shared trauma. Cultural. Normalizes heteronormative standard of nuclear family. And this is, again, part of capitalism is we have to have the family as a basic structure in most capitalistic ideas of looking. It's because there has to be somebody in charge. Heteropatriarchal privileges male heterosexual through patriarchal logic, enunciates oppressions related to desire and identity. It oppresses desires and identities. This perspective is woven into the pattern of history, where 19th century shaping into heterosexuality reflects a broader human narrative. Seeing heterosexuality as a product of its time, molded by a labyrinth of social and cultural forces, that's the emergent philosophy of reflective social and cultural forces that feed back on each other and have pendulum swings, allows analytical psychology to embrace constructionist visions that gender is a social construction. It highlights that much of what we experience psychologically is not an innate truth, but a delicate man-made tapestry of societal social storytelling. That's the narrative approach. There's psychological grand narratives that control us in many ways. This vantage point inspires therapists to shed defensive armor, shed our armor, opening themselves to the raw, often uncomfortable truths of the landscape. Like a hedge knight, we have to face the reality of what it's like to be there. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed giving this short second part as kind of a review of the previous lecture and leading into other things. Thank you very much. Hi, class.